Welcome to the party. I'm not here right now, but I want you to listen very carefully. These guys are very funny, so pay attention. Enough talk. It's showtime.
Hello and welcome to Bags of Action. My name's Steve and my co-host is Pete.
Hello.
This episode is our part 3 of our salute to Swayze. We're talking Roadhouse from 1989.
I can't believe it's that old.
I know, it's been a long time actually since I've seen this film. I must have seen it half a dozen times before, but it's got to be maybe 7-8 years since I've seen it.
Really? I think it's one of those films I go back to quite a lot. I think about 2 years ago is the last time I saw it. But I've probably seen it in double figures, but there's still quite a lot that I've forgotten.
All right, okay. So, shall we do the setup of what it's all about?
Yes, let's.
So, Patrick Swayze plays a character called Dalton, who is a cooler. He's not a bouncer as such, but he organises the bouncers in a club or a bar and arranges them to keep the crowd calm, stop fights before they get too far along, so that people can enjoy themselves and have a good time and basically improve the whole atmosphere of the bar. And he does this from going place to place, quite a kind of nomadic lifestyle.
That's right. And I think they get almost carte blanche to help run the bar however they want. So that not only do they make the decisions on who the bouncers are and how they operate, but they also get a little bit of a say on, almost like a assistant manager, I guess, in some ways, or the link between, I guess, the behaviour in the bar and how the bar or club functions.
Yeah. And the film kicks off at a place called the Bandstand.
That's right.
Where he is the cooler and everybody seems to have a good time. There's lots of giant perms.
Yes, I put the most 80s club ever, because a minute ago I went, I can't believe it was 1989, but when else could it possibly have been? Because there are some mullets, there's a lot of men with hairspray, lots of shoulder pads.
The suits, the kind of Miami Vice suits.
Yeah, I think if you did a film now and set it in the late 80s and did this, people would say it was overplayed. I really do.
It's true to life.
Yeah, I know, exactly. I mean, we remember it, but yeah.
We were there, man. We were with the scars and the perms to prove it. But so I've written down big perms, big, because there are a lot of them, a lot of hairspray, as you said.
There's a lot of hairspray.
So Swayze's playing Dalton, who's the cooler in this bar, and almost immediately, despite the positive atmosphere and everything going nicely, there's a fight. Some guy starts kicking off.
He gets stabbed.
Well, for some reason, I put he kicks because he does this. So he kicks a woman off her bar stool onto the floor.
That's true.
For some reason. And then he sort of has a go at Dalton and says, "Take him outside." And then he knifes Dalton and says, "Come on, man, come on, let's go outside. Come on." And Dalton basically encourages him to go outside, and he just walks off. Yeah. And the guy just leaves him there.
Yeah, it's a really strong opening, because straight away it's like, okay, we're in this club, and now particularly it shows us the time period. But at the time it wasn't a period piece; it was set in the modern day. So yeah, you see straight away that he can keep his cool. He knows what he's doing. It's good actually, because once a lot of the stuff that happens in this opening scene kind of informs his modus operandi. That's my second Latin thing I've said. One off mic and one on. That kind of sets up how he operates, which I think is really cleverly done.
Yeah, it shows that he doesn't have an ego, because straight away you think, oh, he's just going to knock down with the guy and have a big old fight, but he doesn't. He just leaves him there. There's like a line of 6 of his bouncers there, just stood in a row blocking the door, and he walks back into the club. And that's
if the film had been made 10 years earlier and it had been Burt Reynolds rather than Patrick Swayze, that fight would have happened inside, and it would have just carried on for probably the opening 10 minutes of the film.
It would just be like in Every Which Way But Loose film, where they fight all the way through the bar, then outside, and then the parking lot, and then down the street. Man, we've got to do that one at some point, with the fight that goes on for like 20 minutes.
We do.
I love that film.
I do too.
Anyway. So then we see a man who's been watching all of this, Kevin Tighe, who plays a character called Tillman,
right.
a real stretch there. And he's seen Dalton, he's seen what he's like, and whilst Dalton is sewing up himself,
brilliant.
Tillman comes in and makes a proposition to him and sort of says, I want the best. And he goes, well, I've got a club, he says, but it's in a real hole, and I've got some money, I want to improve it. Yeah.
The Double Deuce just outside Kansas. And he's like, I need the best. Wade Garrett is the best. He's getting old, but he's still the best.
That's right, I've written that. And of course, that is a fantastic Sam Elliott.
It will be, yes, and it kind of forced you straight away. As soon as they said that name is important because it's the plot point, I think, for later. I think as well, he's like, I've got your plane tickets. He's like, I don't fly. It's too dangerous.
I've written that as well.
Yeah.
At that point, I thought, right, so he's in a pretty dangerous line of work, but apparently that isn't, flying is infinitely worse.
I guess in his job as a cooler, he's in control. And I guess flying a plane, unless you're the pilot, you are in the lap of the gods, I guess.
Well, if you sat on a parachute or something.
That's true. Well, and we know that he can parachute. We've seen Point Break last time. So I'm not sure what he was on about.
Yeah, what's he worried about anyway? So, yes, he agrees to take the job for a ridiculous amount of money a week. But he sets a basic set of rules. He says, everything I say goes. That's it. Absolutely everything you have to agree. And he says, yeah, okay.
And what Tillman, of course, leaves him with the line, which you get to hear, I think, approximately 15 times during this film.
Yes. Yep.
I thought you'd
bigger. And he just sort of smiles, this kind of weary smile, like, yeah, I've never heard that before, but okay.
And I read an article the other day that was like, hopelessly miscast Patrick Swayze in Roadhouse. Like, no, he wasn't miscast, because he was a cooler that was smaller than you thought he'd be. So he's perfectly cast.
Yeah, absolutely. He wasn't supposed to be a big guy. That was part of the joke. Yeah. The fact that he wasn't the biggest guy, but he was the toughest guy there.
Exactly.
Because he kept his cool.
So he gives away his old battered car and takes his Mercedes and drives it down to
Jasper.
Yes. named after Jasper Carrot, which not a lot of people realise.
I doubt it. But I've written down tape cassettes. He puts on some rocking tune. He gets in his car, smacks in a tape, and off he goes. And I thought, wow, it's been a long time since I've seen someone put a tape cassette in their car and drive off on it.
That's true.
A film.
And everyone smokes. That's the other film. I know we've said quite a lot, but in this, it's like the cigarettes are almost characters. I was waiting for them to have lines. So he goes, everyone walks into the room, he throws a cigarette down, Carrie Ann, the waitress, she's standing there talking with a cigarette, and again, it is an old film, but it's not that old. But it's quite startling to see how many people having a cigarette.
It's remarkable, yeah. Funnily enough, Sam Elliott's character doesn't smoke. They'll drink beer like all the time as well.
Yes.
But Swayze's character, apart from when he's doing certain things, which we'll get into, fighting and something else, he's smoking, and then afterwards he's smoking.
Yes.
So anyway, so he travels down to Jasper, goes to the Double Deuce. He's catcalled by some bikers outside.
Yeah, and straight away, this is not quite like the place he's left. The contrast is pretty startling. So, bouncers are letting fights happen so they can pick up while they pick up girls. The band, which is the Jeff Healey band in real life, are. Sorry, I said in real life, like I was about 10. Behind a cage for their own protection.
Yes. Shows how rough it is. People throwing bottles that are smashing off the cage.
One of the waitresses is openly dealing drugs, and when there is any problem in the club, they don't take it outside at all. It does become more like a bar brawl.
The main kind of bouncer, Morgan,
that's right,
just sees someone fighting and just grabs someone and nuts him, and then picks up someone almost like a wrestling movie.
He is a wrestler. Did you know that the actor is a wrestler?
Oh, well, that explains that, didn't it? But go ahead, tell me, who is he?
This is me now. Jumps to later in notes. Terry Funk. Terry Funk, there we are.
Oh, God, it's Terry Funk, of course. Yeah. Oh, fantastic. Wow,
I saw an article the other day which was like, top 20 wrestlers ever in the movies, and I think he was number 4 for this.
Yes, so he's a troublemaker. He's not helping anything. He's not cooling stuff down. He joins in and enjoys it far too much. He's got a terrible temper. And he has a go at Swayze, who's just stood there watching things. He goes, if you're not buying beer, you're out of here. Or buying drinks. And it's like, wow, what an attitude.
Yeah. And it's just, well, there's so many. This scene, I think, is really clever because so much happens in this scene. It's almost your whole first act is this scene in a way. There's a great touch where Tillman, I don't know, we should probably warn about swearing, but I'm going to swear. Where Tillman changes the graffiti on the wall from great fuck to great Buick, which I thought was genius.
But the place is a hole.
It is a hole.
The walls are wrecked, the tables are all mismatched, there's the cage on the stage for the band, there's the fights all the time, the drugs, the beer, there's the guy skimming the till. Yeah. It's a real hole. Really.
And that's why I've never been able to understand this, and watching it again I still don't, is why the Cody, which is played by Jeff Healey, who's the blind sort of blues singer, who Dalton knows. So it's like, there's this random guy wants you to go to this random kind of hellhole, but but a guy you already know is there. And I've always found that a little bit, because it is a dive, and if they've played places before, but I think the thing is this guy's got a lot of money, unless maybe it's never mentioned in the film, but whether having him there was almost like a way of getting Dalton involved, I don't know.
I don't know, because maybe Dalton's just worked that many bars that he knows a lot of musicians.
Yeah,
because he says, it's just like the place down in so-and-so.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, we know they're a good band. People who aren't drinking really heavily probably know they're a good band, but they're not the right crowd. So maybe this was part of the transformation. I don't know.
And the Cody character's great for exposition, because every time anyone asks anything, he can fill him in. So he does kind of almost narrate at times. It's pretty good.
Should we mention, I've got to say, compared to some of the other films we've done in the sort of 80s and 90s, this film isn't really kind to women and the roles that they have. So we should get that out of the way by saying why the first bar fight starts. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do. Well, basically a guy says you can kiss my wife's breasts for $20. Which is, he explains it is $10 each, which I think was really good of him, because I don't think the guy looked like he was very good at maths.
No.
And so the guy she takes her top off, the guy starts to fondle her breasts, and he's taking quite a long time over that task, and it's like, well, come on, aren't you gonna, and he's like, well, I haven't got $20. So that's why the fight breaks out. And you think, that's that kind of carries on, really, for the next 90 minutes or so. It's a film of its time, that's for certain. But this becomes a crazy bar brawl. It is like something from Blazing Saddles, or say either a Clint Eastwood or a Burt Reynolds film. It is crazy. Everyone in the bar, and it's quite funny as well. People kind of hit each other in the head with bottles and stuff. And I love the fact that Dalton just stands there and just watches it happen. He's just assessing things. Yeah.
He dodges a bottle at one point when it comes towards his head, but that's about it.
And we find out as well, in amongst all this, one of the bouncers says, that's Dalton. He ripped someone's throat out in Memphis. So again, something which they come back to later. But they get an awful lot of information across in this scene without it being Basil exposition. It's cleverly done.
It's good, yes. In the midst of the fight, we find out about him. We get the setup of what's the bar is actually like, and that is a complete hole. And he doesn't help out at all. He just watches everything, and that's it.
It's a bit like Gordon Ramsay on Kitchen Nightmares. I think that may be where they got the idea from. Where he just goes in, watches them be crap, and then tells them afterwards what to do.
Yes. So he kind of leaves his current car, walks off to a car showroom and buys a beat-up, rubbish old car.
Yep.
Then he buys some extra tyres from the tyre shop and puts them in the boot. Now I couldn't remember why he did this at first until it happened, and I went, oh yeah, of course, all right. But I was thinking, why? Why is he buying extra tyres? He didn't just buy one, he bought two and put them in the boot. And I thought, well, what's that all about? It's very bizarre.
True. But he gets a place to rent, doesn't he? It's at Emmett's farm. It's out in the quiet, in the middle of nowhere, kind of keep himself to himself. But this is when we kind of see the big bad for the first time, which is Brad. Is it Wesley or Westlake? Wesley. Brad Wesley, played by... I forgot.
Ben Gazzara.
Yes.
There you go.
And he lands in his next his idyllic place, horses, very quiet farm, right out in the sticks. And then he comes along and lands in his helicopter just to piss Emmett off, as he said.
He buzzes the horses, and he lives just across the river in this massive modern house.
Yes. And so Emmett doesn't understand why Dalton wants to take it. There's no phone, no TV. You're the first person in 20 people to take the place. And he said, I have to charge you $100 a month. I was like, that seems a very good deal.
Yeah, but he always said the reason he has to do it is to keep the church happy.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
He's like, well, if it keeps the church happy, okay. Like, can you afford it? He's like, yeah, I can afford it.
I said, doesn't Dalton say, well, apparently, if there's money involved, the church is usually happy. So. Yeah,
and then it's like, that's right.
So then from here, we get to see basically Dalton going in and kind of first day in the job. Tillman introduced him as the best damn cooler in the business, and he goes in and pretty much marks his territory on day one. So Morgan, who we mentioned before, he's fired because of his temperament. What am I supposed to do? There's always barber college. I didn't remember any of the one-liners. I don't remember. I always thought that Dalton was quite straight in this film, but watching it again, he does have
some great
gags. Most of them at very odd moments, but yeah. And then the girl who's dealing drugs, she's gone. And then he actually says, "My way or the highway."
The highway. You can't have been the first person to say that, sure.
I'm thinking, maybe that's the first. But how old was I when I first saw it? I was about 15, so maybe it was the first time I ever heard that phrase. May have been in this film. It's possible. It's possible. But then he gives the 3 rules. I remember thinking, this is the bit I can't remember. What are the 3 rules? And he tells you, like, oh, okay, they're not exactly the world's most grand or earth-breaking rules.
So it's expect the unexpected,
which
take it outside.
Yeah, but it's expect the unexpected, semicolon, never underestimate your opponent.
Yes. Always take it outside. If there's a fight, never start it inside. Always take it outside. Number 3, be nice. And then he goes through this whole thing about the guy calls you this, be nice. The guy goes, hey, well, what if he calls my mum a so-and-so? He goes, well, is she? And the guy just looks really pissed off. And it's just like, so take it outside, be nice, just be nice. Like, okay. And then you get the first night of him being in charge as cooler.
You do, and Bear is checking people's ID. He seems taken on what Dalton has said straight away. But then Steve... not you. Steve. No, he just basically says, yeah, it's okay, let the girls...
No, I know them.
Let the girls in. They may not quite be old enough, but let them in anyway. And then a girl starts dancing on the table. Again, the female roles aren't exactly... well, they are fully fleshed out, but not fully fleshed out characters. So she's dancing on the table. Then one of the guys asks her to get down from the table, nicely, following Dalton's advice, and then the guy pulls a knife out.
The boyfriend's being defensive, saying, lay it down from the table, lay it down from the table, and he tries to be nice again, and the guy shoves him away, pulls a knife, and sort of threatens the bouncer. Dalton steps in, immediately snaps the knife out of his hand, and smashes the guy's face into the table.
Which to me,
3 seconds. Boom.
That wasn't outside. I think he broke his own rule very quickly, I thought.
I think it's the thing that the knife...
Yeah.
He said, if you can take it outside, do so. But I think because the guy pulled the knife, he's like, right, that's it. I haven't got time to be nice. I haven't got time to take it outside. Boom. Takes him down really quick. Helps the girl nicely off the table.
Yes, he does. Very nicely. Very gallantly.
And at this point, I've written staring blonde.
I put
stares at Dalton.
I put blonde bombshell Denise is impressed.
I put big perm as
She's
well.
got big, amongst other things, she has a big perm.
She stares at him.
She does. It's very intense.
She's weirding me out at this point.
Then I put Steve having sex, fired.
Yes. So Steve, the bouncer, not me, thank you, has let one of the girls in, and he's basically in the storeroom with her.
Getting acquainted.
Getting to know her very well. Dalton comes in, tells him that he's fired, and says, well, what am I supposed to do? Well, you can stay there if you want, but you're still fired.
Yeah. And then... the next thing is the end of the night, and he's kind of assessing things again. So there's a barman, Pat, who's played by a singer called John Doe. I don't think that's his real name. He's in trouble for skimming the till, so he has to go as well. But he basically turns to Tillman and is like, do you want me to go as well? And you sense there's something a bit different here. And he's like, he said it, but do you want me to go as well? And that's kind of the line in the sand we find out later. It's kind of, this is the point where... has Wesley got control over the town or not?
Yeah.
To a certain extent. And as soon as Tillman says, because he does waver a little bit, then he says, "No, you are gone." That's what sets the rest of the film in motion, really.
Yeah. So then we're basically, Dalton's relaxing at home in this quiet little room, and Wesley decides to have a massive pool party with like everybody there. I put staring blonde is there again.
I don't know what my primitive text has got, but it says here, first night boner. First night boner, his car smashed up. I don't know what that was supposed to be.
So he just come out of the bar, and he said they've smashed in his windscreen and they've slashed 2 of his tyres. So that's why he then gets the other tyres out of the boot, changes them, and then he obviously gets home. And Westlake has a party with everybody, and even Morgan the bouncer was there. I noticed
he was.
Wesley, sorry, not Westlake, Brad Wesley. Yeah. And
so he turns his light off. Dalton does, where he's been sat reading, and sort of looks over to see what they're getting up to. Then it cuts the next morning, and Carrie Ann, who's the waitress that he's met, comes to give him breakfast. And I remember the first few times I saw this, I thought, a romance maybe blossoming here. But she basically she brought him breakfast, so she's kind of warning him. She's like, you got rid of Pat. That might have been a mistake. I don't think she really says. Does she say that? Why? I can't remember. Does she say that he's?
I don't think so.
No, I think she just says that might have been a mistake.
Yeah, and also we get the bum shot as well.
Yeah, we do. It's a very Van Damme feel to this film, because Swayze's bottom, I think, makes 3 appearances altogether. He has more screen time than Sam Elliott.
Yes, so he gets up apparently.
That must be it's rule number 4, isn't it? Don't underestimate them. Take it outside. What he meant to take outside was actually his arse. So and be nice.
Yeah, so he gets up after having sleeping naked and pulls on his jeans, and Carrie Ann's there like, oh, hello, trying not to look, but blatantly looking.
Yes, indeed.
After having turned into Kevin Williams.
I was going to say something like Kenneth Williams. So then we get to our first his first run-in with Wesley, who's... And this scene still, I find this a bit weird. Is it Life is But a Dream that he's got playing? I can't remember.
I think so. It's a bit.
And he's in an open-top car. Sorry, I'm moving left and right, which obviously you can't see. But he's driving his car. Because obviously, if you run a town, what you can do is you can drive on either side of the road. Not just one, but both. So he swerves his car and then nearly runs Dalton off the road. Which is kind of, who's that kind of thing. It's the same guy with the helicopter. We've seen him in the helicopter, we've seen him at the party, and now we've seen him. So we don't like him at this point.
A bit of a nutter.
Yes.
Rich, crazy nutter.
So he heads to Red's Auto Parts. Character Red, played by the actor Red West.
Another stretch there again.
Excuse me, any chance, Mr. Harrington, that my character... I know he's called Brian. Could he possibly be called Red? Because it would be much easier for me to remember.
When people are talking to me, they go Red.
I'll turn around.
Hello, Mr. Tart, yes. Is there any chance that my character would be called Tillman? Therefore, then when people say Tillman, I'll know they're talking about, oh, right, yes, that's fine, okay, great. Carry on.
So he orders a new windscreen, doesn't he? Because his windscreen's been smashed. And Wesley comes in at that point and introduces himself, if I remember rightly.
Yes, and just sort of, I think he sort of says who he is, but that's kind of it. And Dalton he says, let me know if you need anything. And Dalton says, yep, sure, great, and walks out. And then we see a bit of the beginning of a conversation between Wesley and Red. Yeah. We don't see what is really said between the two of them.
No.
Hints at something which comes back later.
It does. Then the old guy, Emmett, finds Dalton's Merc under tarpaulin and sort of thinks, hang on, this guy's got a Merc. And then we see another, kind of long topless shot this time of Patrick Swayze doing some sort of Tai Chi martial arts. And all the time he's doing that, Wesley is on a quad bike on the other side of the river watching him intently.
Yes. I'm not really sure what... I think he's just another one of his boy's toys as a rich man. He's got the pool party, he's got a helicopter, and now he's playing on his quad.
Yes. And there are more boys' toys to come later. So then we're on to night 2. And what I think I noticed at this point in the story is how quickly the film changes. Because, again, I've seen it quite a few times, but I always thought there was quite a while of him training everyone up to be really good.
Yes.
And then it kind of became this other big bad kind of story. But it's actually really quick. We're not even on night 2 yet. And it's already changed. But then you get the feeling that maybe Tillman didn't just want him there to clean up the bar.
No, something else is going on that we gradually find out as the film goes on, and Tillman wasn't unaware of it. He knew, the whole town knew, but obviously Dalton didn't until he got into the middle of it.
So night 2, Pat turns up, the barman, with some heavies, and basically tells Dalton that Tillman has changed his mind and that he's back in a job because his uncle is Brad Westley, and he supplies the liquor, and if his nephew doesn't keep his job, then the bar won't have any booze to sell. Yes,
and Dalton says, well, no, we're not going to do that. You're still out of here. I'm like, hang on a minute, and then they all start wailing on Dalton.
Well, it pulls a knife. Again, pulling knives seems to be the standard. I don't agree with you. I don't agree with you either. I really don't agree with you. Knife. That seems to be the pattern of this film. It's like, you don't agree with me? Well, I've got a knife. And they do get gradually bigger.
I've got a spoon. I see you play knife and spoon before, mate.
Spork! Sorry.
Oh, that's just spoiling it, though.
That would win. That wins all cutlery-based altercations. So
Dalton has a scrap with the bouncers.
Again, inside, I want to say again, I know there's a weapon, but he was inside when this happened.
Yes, he was in the office, though, and he couldn't exactly say, will you gentlemen...
But he does put 2 of them through the window into the club.
Yes. And then he just sort of takes them all apart, and then the bouncers carry them out for him. But, of course, he's been knifed again.
Stabbed in the ribs.
Across the ribs this time. Yeah. I put Dalton and his people fight. His friends kind of help mop up the other bouncers.
And you start to notice there's a bond forming between him and his new team. Definitely. Yeah. I've put here, cue sexy doctor.
Yes, because at the moment she's just called Doc.
She's called Doc. She gets a name in the 3rd act, but she's only really called Doc for the next kind of 20 minutes, I think.
However, but they do say her name.
Do they?
See, now, nobody says it apart from you hear in the hospital, they say, I've written Dr. Clay. Because it says, oh, hello, I'm Dr. Clay, she says, and he just calls her Doc. And then later on we find out the name is Elizabeth. But at the moment they just say it's Dr. Clay. And I put, hello, knowing looks. I can see where this is going.
And this, I think, predates Lethal Weapon 2, kind of injured with Rennie. For 3 even, actually, Rennie Russo. So, but cue sexy doctor, Kelly Lynch, and I've put in brackets Cocktail, because she was in Cocktail.
Right, okay.
And he gets to, and this is a very kind of macho scene. You don't need an anaesthetic? Why don't you need an anaesthetic? Pain don't hurt. Well, I think that's wrong. I think that's fundamentally flawed. And I think the doctor, who has a medical degree, agrees with me.
Yes, because she says, well, most of my patients wouldn't agree with you. And I'm thinking, I agree with her and most of her patients. Exactly. Pain does hurt. But then you get the first call back, remember? At this point, she goes, I thought you'd be big.
Yes. And there's a few things that come out here as well, because she says, why do you carry medical records with you? And he's like, well, it's just quicker. And she goes, oh, I hear you've got a philosophy degree. I hear you've got a degree, which I don't know, I guess it was in his medical records, and she asks him what in, and he says philosophy. Which again, later, it kind of his outlook on life is quite philosophical, and somebody later starts talking to him about philosophy. So there's a few other lines in here. Now, she says she thinks he'd be bigger, which is a thing right throughout, but she also says, do you ever win any of your fights? And he says, no one wins a fight.
Yeah. He says, what did you study? And he says, philosophy and shit like that.
Yes.
And then he says, no one ever wins a fight. So there's something that we'll come back to there again that he mentions a few times. But so we've had a few callbacks throughout.
And he also says, which... He doesn't say come up for coffee, but he says, if you ever fancy a coffee, kind of call in to the Double Deuce, which is a bar, based on having seen her, it's not a place you'd expect her to go.
No, but he is trying to make it a nicer place to bring it back up to like the bandstand at the beginning, where it was a better class of place. Yes. And that's Tillman's plan, but at the moment Yes, it is still. It's not like you say, "Come over for a drink. It's a lovely bar," and you walk in and there's people flying out through the doors and the windows. You'd be like, "No, bye," and walk the other way. You'd be like, "Really? You brought me to this hole? Really? Wow!" And show a girl a good time. Brilliant, thanks, mate. I'd be offended. I'd tell him to shove it and walk off in a huff. I'd grab my handbag and I'd walk off.
And I would go, "Pain does hurt."
You know nothing.
It's a medically proven fact. Just throw the copy of the Lancet at him.
I'm doing my Game of Thrones things. You know nothing, Dalton, and walk off. You will get arrested for 30 years. Worth
So what I've got here, Wesley's heavies arrive at his place. One driving Bigfoot.
Bigfoot. Well, yes, it's probably because it was a big.
Yeah, because remember, I think it's I was for some reason was well into monster trucks around the time this film came out. I think it isn't necessarily Bigfoot, which I think was the original one, but it's blue like Bigfoot was. And I know it's very 80s, but I still find the fact they've got a monster truck really annoying.
Annoying?
Yeah, it just seems a bit silly. But then he's a very rich man, and
yeah, he likes his toys, as you said, boys' toys.
So then this is when you start to see that Wesley maybe isn't just like this power-hungry, money-obsessed guy. He's maybe a little bit unhinged.
Yeah, so we get to meet some of his other characters. We get to meet Jimmy, who's dangerous and mean, and he doesn't like Dalton.
Do you know what else Jimmy's been in that you've watched?
Yeah.
You do.
I was waiting to...
I do. I use the wonders of the internet. I think I managed to find a Babylon 5 actor in every film we've ever watched.
You've done quite well. Actually, if you were paying attention, and I was, there were two Babylon 5
hang on. Well, Marshall Teague is the character the actor who plays Jimmy, who's Talon in Babylon 5.
Absolutely.
But he's been in everything. Deep Space Nine and Voyager as different characters. Quantum Leap.
Yeah. Really? Wow. He's done everything.
18-4 guy, Knight Rider, Automan. I think he deserves a round of applause.
I think so. There we go. Yes. So the other Babylon 5 connection, this is my obsession, obviously, is that back at the bandstand, the unfortunate babe who's kicked off the stool is actually Pat Talman from Babylon 5. Who her other job, as well as being an actor, is that she's a stunt woman, and she's been a stunt woman for many, many years. She was a stunt woman in Next Gen she played lots of, like Ro Laren. You'd see her stood next to people dressed up in the full gear. So whilst she was working on Babylon 5, she was also working on the Next Generation, being a stunt woman. Okay. So they probably hired her and said, "You're going to be a bandstand babe."
But I hope she's
going to kick you off a stool. Oh.
I hope she was actually credited as unfortunate woman, which I think was how you described her.
She was credited as bandstand babe.
Bandstand babe. There you go.
There you go. So yeah, that was our Babylon 5.
Nice.
We'll be back next.
It's so far that's been pretty constant. We've managed to get that in pretty much every time.
Yeah. So I've put Red is at this point is robbed by Brad Wesley. So Dalton comes to see him to get some bits for his car, probably, and we see that a couple of his guys and Jimmy walk off smiling and grinning because they've messed up some of his store and broken stuff.
But just before that, the bit where we saw that Wesley's a bit unhinged is he wants an apology for them letting Pat get beaten up. And then he just beats the shit out of O'Connor because he bleeds too much.
Yes. Just doesn't like him. So you think, wow, this guy's really unhinged.
Yeah. Sorry, but you're right. But yeah, he's been... And he says, do you get robbed? And he goes, yeah, every week. And then you find out that 10% of the revenue from every local business is paid into a fund to help the town, but essentially go into Wesley's pocket. The other bit in this scene which offended me as well as the robbery was Dalton's karate top. He's wearing a full-on, like a gi kind of top. But that's okay. It's fine. He does know martial arts, so it's okay.
He's allowed to have it. Otherwise, just not allowed.
It is. It is.
So at this point, Dalton then calls his friend Wade Garrett for some advice. Just sort of calls him up and, hey, what's going on, mijo? he says, whilst working in a bar.
He's in a strip joint, isn't he? And he pulls an army guy who's getting a little bit frisky, and he goes, "Hey, Rambo."
It's great.
It's great.
And he sort of cools him down, and then his friends spray him with water pistols to cool him down. And
then, Dalton's on the phone, and he kind of alludes to needing help, but doesn't quite ask for it. And then, "I've got to go. Stay cool, kid." And then he goes.
Yeah, so I thought he was going to ask him for advice. Doesn't, or at least ask him for help. He just sort of says, what are you into? And he goes, it's the same situation as usual. And we know that he's lying because we're starting to see the edges of it. And yet, Garrett can obviously sense something.
Yeah.
But he doesn't sort of say, "Do you want me to come and help?" or anything. He doesn't ask and he doesn't say it.
I wonder if kind of Dalton would never admit that he needed help. But by ringing him, he's kind of like, he's subconsciously done that without, I don't know. It's weird because, again, every time I see it, I think, he's rung him and now he's going to turn up. But it's quite a while until he does become more part of the story.
Yeah. So the next night, or that night rather, Dalton's working again, and I've put, Denise is very forward with Dalton.
I've put, Denise asked Dalton to fuck.
I was trying to be more polite, but yes, essentially, she says, "Would it shock you?" And he just sort of says, "Nope." And he won't look her in the eye either. And then I've put, 4 men come to spoil the party.
Jimmy takes her away. More heavies arrive at Double Deuce.
Yes. So they walk in, and Dalton says to one of his bouncers straight away, "Left boot." He goes, "What?" And it zooms in. You get a lovely kind of ding moment of the dagger stuck out one of the guy's boots. And Dalton and his men, bouncers, essentially escort them outside.
Yes, because they say, doesn't he tell them it's closed?
Yes.
And what are they doing? And he said, "Having a good time." Well, we want to have a good time. You're too stupid to have a good time. So he's got some cracking one-liners. And he drags him out of the club by his boot.
Yes, drags him out, pulls off the boot and throws it onto the roof. And then you get that line about, doesn't matter how big the guy is, you take down his knee.
That's right. Which is a good bit of foreshadowing. I put here, fight, our bouncers versus the heavies.
And of course, just at this particular moment, the Doc, as she's known at this point still, comes by. And of course, gone is the white coat and the scraped back hair and the glasses.
It's very plain Jane Superbrain from Neighbours, that transformation.
Pretty much. She's now got her hair down, she's got makeup on. She's actually
got the identical hair to him. So if you notice, through the whole time they're together, their hair is almost exactly the same.
Except he's just slightly more curly.
That's true.
She doesn't perm.
He's got curlers.
So then Doc decides...
Actually, that's what I put here, but Doc arrives and sees it all. Dalton and Doc have the same amount of hair product.
And she still decides to stay.
Yes, and goes for coffee with him, the allure of a tough man.
Yeah, and so they go to a diner somewhere else, and I've written that she says, they're talking about various things, and she says, "You're not a nice guy," which is a bit odd, but I guess after seeing him fight and beat up people, but then she knew what he did.
And the thing, he kind of says, no, he said, he says, "I never said I was," or "I know that," or something.
And anyway, so they chat for a bit. It's all very nice. And he says, that's right. He says, "I better get you home, or else you won't think I'm not a nice."
That's right. You won't think I'm a nice guy. She says, "I know you're not a nice guy." That's right.
I know you're not a nice guy. Yeah. So she drops him off at his car, and now he's got a stop sign shoved through the window.
They have a little bit of a kiss in her Jeep.
Yeah.
And then the next morning, he wakes up on top of his car. Did he sleep? I've never.
No, you see, I don't think he did. I think he knew
they were coming.
What was coming, because he's got different clothes on.
I guess
he's dressed in like a suit, so I think he's just watching the sun or just kind of.
I just feel like lying on my car this morning. It's just every time I see that, I think, have I missed a major plot point where maybe he's got a back problem and she's diagnosed the car bonnet therapy? I don't know.
And a very hard service, possibly. Oh, how about my car? That'll work.
Perfect.
Thanks. We should put that cutscene back in. It makes more sense.
Exactly.
As a doctor, I recommend hard surface for your back. Okay.
So,
So then, two heavies turn up and basically say they want. Wesley wants to. He's summoned to see Mr. Wesley,
and he gets to see Denise, the blonde that had propositioned him earlier, and she's working out, as everyone did, to work out videos in 1989. But she's also got a very badly beaten face, so she's been punished for her actions.
The odd thing is, right, so if she goes to the bar all the time anyway, and I'm thinking, so why was she? Who hit her and why? Whether it was Wesley or Jimmy, I don't know. But I'm thinking, is it because she was talking to Dalton and she wasn't supposed to? Is it because she was out late? It's just one of these weird kind of things. Or is it just power play?
It is weird, because there's some stuff later, because at the time you think, oh, maybe, he's quite controlling of her, doesn't really want to do anything out, that with other men and things. But then you find out, then later, it's kind of the flip of that scene. It's weird. It is weird. But again, it's not another female character that doesn't do particularly well out of this film. And then they don't seem to have any cornflakes left, so they offer him a Bloody Mary for his breakfast.
And Wesley, whilst eating his breakfast, lays out his belief in destiny and faith. And I've put, weirdly, this links to what Dalton was talking about with the doc, because he says at the hospital that he studied philosophy. And if you're looking at him, generally his kind of way of life, he's got quite a Zen approach to life. Because he says, no one wins a fight. He moved to live in a place that was away from everything, no TV, very quiet, very at one with nature. And he says he's not seeking violence, but he believes in being ready for it. So he's kind of connected to nature, and yet at the same time, he works in a job that's incredibly violent. Yeah. And so when he hears Wesley's belief in his faith and destiny, I don't know if it's just what he's saying or if his actual belief offends Dalton. It's something I hadn't thought about until I watched it again and thought, interesting.
Yeah, because he starts saying, you must enjoy it. You must enjoy violence. Every man enjoys violence. So there is definitely a clash of beliefs there. But it's like Wesley does this kind of info dump of his life story. I was in Chicago, then I went to Korea, I guess in the war, and then I came to town, I brought all these companies here. If it wasn't for me, JCPenney wouldn't be here. I brought all the companies here, so I need to be paid for that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's my town sort of thing.
And then he starts to turn the screw a bit on Dalton, because he's like, I know about Memphis and the man that you killed. I know they said it was self-defense, and I know that it wasn't. And then he kind of says, how much would it take to get you to work for me?
Yeah, he says there isn't enough money at all. And he, his implied threat of dragging it back up, and it's the kind of the stone that's in Dalton's shoe that he can't get rid of, that he's carrying around with him, as it were. It still makes him feel uncomfortable. It's still very much against his philosophy.
Yep. Yeah.
It's weird that, he said he studied philosophy and shit, and he's obviously making fun of it as being something that's useless and totally at odds with what he does. And yet at the same time, he does have this kind of underlying lifestyle that he's trying to embrace, one of peace. So it's like a man of peace stuck in a job of violence. Yeah. It's very odd.
It is. And I think there's more depth to this film than I've recently read a few different reviews that were pretty scathing. And I think, people haven't really got to this stuff. Thought about it properly.
I think it's,
I noticed in my notes now, because the structure of the film, obviously, because they're working in a bar, it quite often, scenes will then go to the next night in the bar. So I got a little bit bored at this point. Another night, Dalton's first V-neck sweater.
Yeah, but here's the weird thing, right? It was almost like they jumped, because you get to the bar and there's a massive queue outside the door.
Yes.
The building's been painted. Everything's a new sign up outside. They go inside.
Right, they're all in uniform.
Blue neon.
And they're in
uniform. Like blue neon everywhere. Yep. There's no cage for the musicians, and all the staff are in these sort of orange tops. And I'm suddenly thinking, wait, hang on. Last night it was a hole. Yeah. Tonight it's totally changed.
And it's weird because you'd think that you don't. It would be weird for that conversation with Wesley to have happened, and loads of time to have passed, and him not to have done anything. So you get the feeling that it's weird. It is weird. It doesn't make a lot of sense. Or there's a gap, like maybe earlier in the film that we haven't seen. But it doesn't. Everything else kind of ties up quite linear, apart from this bit. It is strange. And you get the new barman at this point.
Yes.
Played by Keith David.
That's right.
Again, lots and lots of things.
Everything.
Yeah, but they're struggling to get booze at this point. So this is the big concern, is everything in the Double Deuce is looking great, more customers and everything else, but they're going to run out of drink. So Dalton steps in now and says that he's got suppliers that he can get to come in.
Yeah, so Wesley's putting a squeeze on them to stop everyone supplying them with alcohol and attempt to shut it down another way, because obviously they fired his nephew, who was the skimming the till and working as the bartender. So then I've put Doc comes to visit Dalton, and Jimmy and one of his other guys are watching. They say something really odd.
Is it dig a hole?
Yeah, he said, and I was thinking, wait, so they're going to kill the doctor at this point?
No. It's I don't. So I'm going to jump a bit forward, but they talk briefly about Wesley and the doc having a little bit of a thing.
Right.
But equally, she says she was married once to the wrong guy. I think she was married to Wesley.
That's what it seems to imply, but why would they say dig a hole?
To kill him, because basically, up to now, they've been warning him, beating him up, but as soon as he's been seen with her, Wesley's going to want him dead. That's it, he signed his death warrant. Because if you notice, from that moment, everything ramps up. And suddenly it stops being about kind of, stabbing the ribs and becomes more about taking people out permanently.
So that would make more sense, because I was thinking, why would you threaten
But it is
her?
weird, because when she talks, there's a picture of her, no, hang on, there's not a picture of her there, but we do know there's, you get the feeling, is he obsessed with her, but never been with her?
Yes.
Then you get the feeling they were together, then you think they might have been married, and it's never quite...
No.
And it's a bit predictable. That's one of the, this film is very good, but quite formulaic. And I guess it will be having, the girl that ends up with the kind of hero having previously been with the villain is a pretty staple thing.
Yes.
But it's not overplayed here, I don't think.
No, so they kind of leave it up to you to decide.
And when he takes her back to his place, and she starts sort of wistfully looking out at Wesley's place. It's quite subtle, because she's really staring at his property. And that's when he says, have you been married before? And she goes, yeah, it didn't work out. It was the wrong guy. Which you think, okay, was she married to him? Which doesn't, unless he was, maybe quite a nice chap and then went off the rails. You just don't think, I don't see at what point this kind of guy would have been.
I don't know. I guess on the outside, here's the weird... You're probably right. Here's the weird thing, though. So he's come back and he's a man of power, which obviously attracts people.
Yes.
And he seems like a nice guy, but as she got to know him, he came a bit weird. And of course, his replacement for her is another blonde, Denise.
Yes.
So the fact that if he was with the doctor, and he's replaced her with someone who's not nearly as clever, not nearly as able to challenge him in the same way.
Actually, that maybe links. There's a line later, which I won't mention yet, but Garrett kind of almost implies that she shouldn't look like that when she's that intelligent. So maybe that's Wesley's thing of actually, I'm going to get someone that looks similar, but is not as bright, because then I'm in control. And
that would be the thing, because then if the doc left him, she's never going to leave him, because he'd make sure of that. He'd bury her before he'd let her leave. Another woman leave him, which is why he obviously beats her, I guess.
I think we also found out at this point that Red is her uncle. And that's why she's in. Because again, you think, why is she in this town? And it's because her uncle's there. And
so we find her full name at this point is Elizabeth
Clay. And
discover.
Then they make love.
So I put in some ways this is really reminiscent of Ghost. Maybe it's the music. Maybe it's just because it's another Patrick Swayze thing. But
it's more reminiscent of Dirty Dancing, because it's exactly the same song as the first night he sleeps with Baby.
Really?
Yes. I read that. I read that. I didn't sit there and go, oh, hang on a moment, let me just find, where's my Dirty Dancing copy? Oh, yes, it's the same, but apparently it's... I don't know if it was deliberately kind of as a nod, or... I don't know.
Come on. You didn't need to say, where's my Dirty Dancing copy? It was already in your DVD player, wasn't it?
Well, no,
come on.
It was...
You just pulled it off the shelf.
It was alphabetized, that's all my film was. It's my wife's copy!
Sure it is.
Yes.
Yes. That's what I say.
Yes.
Yeah. It's my copy of Twilight. It's my wife's copy. Yeah.
What have I got? So in the night they sit outside naked.
It is the weird thing. I put Wesley Purves on.
Can I just the weird bit as well? It's like, and again, sorry, I'm not going to get too technical about a sex scene in a film, but when they're having sex, Stephen,
what a young man,
she's covered up. And so the next morning, kind of in the night, she wakes up, she's got the covers over, as in many of these films, you've got the covers over you. Then she kind of pulls it down. It's like, what was the, if you don't feel the need, and probably rightly so, to show her naked at that point, why do you need to show it afterwards? It's just a strange decision.
But the odd thing is as well that she's, normally you'd get the kind of, oh, are you going to stay? And you'd be like, yeah, maybe. But so she's really realistic. She says, where are you going to go from here? She knows straight away that whatever they've got is temporary, that he's a man that moves around. So she's blatantly, she's not a two-dimensional character. She knows that he's not going to stay. She knows that this is nice, but it won't last. And he's not rude or blunt. He just kind of says he doesn't know, but it's not bitter. And so they're both kind of accepting what they've got, and they're enjoying it.
But then doesn't she say...
And that's kind of it.
Doesn't she say to him, you could always stay here. You could always stick around. I think. So she's kind of...
She does, but he doesn't really answer. And she's, trying to appeal to him, but she thinks that, he could move on, and he always has.
Yeah.
But then Wesley is on his rocking chair watching them in the dark.
Kind of pervy Val Doonican.
There's a line I didn't thought you ever say.
So I don't know where this... I've got here, but I don't know how we found this out. Doc Elizabeth Clay had a thing with Westlake. She left town, and he went crazy. But so somebody must have said that at this point, but I don't remember who.
I've just watched it. I don't remember that at all.
It happened. I've written it down. Okay. Booze arrives, and Wade on a motorbike.
Oh, you missed the best bit yet first. You've missed another bit of wisdom.
Okay.
So the next morning, Emmett's unloading.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Looks like a slurry tank off the back of his... Notice I live in the country. I know what a slurry tank is. Anyway, he unloads it off the back, and Dalton goes to help him. He goes, you got a woman up there? And he goes, yep. And then Emmett shares his wisdom about women. And he's saying, well, you should look after her or something. And he goes, I'm not very smart. And he goes, well, maybe she's smart enough for the both of you. Good old Emmett.
Which proves to be pretty much true.
Yes, really. So I put, you're right. So then the truck arrives with beer.
Yes.
And it's this supply. Obviously, Dalton's supply has turned up and done good.
I think I've overstated this about Wade. I've got here, Wade arrives, one of the coolest characters in film history. I think he is. Like, if anyone has ever gets the chance to read the majority of my comic scripts, nearly all of them say, cool guy, beard, long hair, think Sam Elliott in Roadhouse, which I've stopped doing, but in nearly every script I've ever written, I've seen that. Yes, you have seen that. It's the classic mentor. Again, this film does a lot of archetypes, but I think it does it really well, because he's the older guy, but he's
bit of a limp.
But he's also very zen and very laid back, and you get the feeling that maybe, as well as learning stuff from his philosophy degree, that actually this is a guy who's really he looks like a session musician, but he's someone that is also, because he's ridiculously laid back, Wade.
Yes, he's obviously. We'd find out later that Garrett basically says to him, Wade says to him, "I've learned from much as you learned from me."
So maybe that's why. Yeah.
So these four guys turn up to essentially say, you're not using this booze, we're going to take it all back. And here's the interesting thing again, right? So Dalton sighs because he knows the inevitable is going to happen, and yet, right, he offers them a drink. He kind of says, why don't you just come in and have a drink? Because we know that he doesn't want to fight. Yeah. He really doesn't want to do it, and he's offering them an out, and they don't take it. Yeah. So he kicks the shit out of them, and then it starts to go wrong because there's four of them.
And he's knocked out with a bottle, and they're holding him and kind of beating him. But at this point as well, he doesn't know that Wade is there, because Wade's gone in the front door, I think, and is kind of almost like doesn't want him to know he's there, wants to surprise him, whereas Dalton's out the back, getting
crap beaten out of him by four guys.
And then when he does go around the back and see what's happening, there's a great moment here. You going to fight me, dickless? Well, I ain't going to get my dick out.
That's a giant bloke. He's like 7 foot.
His character's called Mountain, I believe.
There you go. You see, I wonder why. And Wade just watches for a couple of seconds. He just kind of watches Dalton getting beat up, and he's like, Right, and afterwards he sort of says, I got all the control. He's like, yeah, sure.
And of course, how does Wade take down the massive guy?
Takes out his
knee. So that...
Yes.
Hang on.
Called
Perhaps Dalton learned that from Wade Garrett.
Maybe he did.
Wade Garrett is such a great kind of Western name as well.
It is, and Sam Elliott has played so many great characters in Western.
The film is, in many ways, it is a modern Western.
Yeah. We're going to have to do my favourite Western at some point with Sam Elliott in as well, where he plays one of the most famous lawmen ever. I'll have you know.
Okay.
Do you know who I'm going to say?
Go on.
Well, do you know the film?
I don't know if I do. I think I do, but I don't want to get it wrong.
So the film, of course, is Tombstone.
Okay, yeah.
And he plays the brother of the infamous Earp. He plays Virgil Earp, who's the elder brother of Wyatt.
He does.
This was Tombstone a few years after that. And I'm Your Huckleberry, one of my favourite films.
It's a great film.
Ever. And Val Kilmer was robbed for Oscar. Yes. Anyway, come back.
We will.
Another day. So yes, Wade is there. He meets the doc, and they go out to breakfast.
Yeah, he shows her his scars, and he wants to dance with her.
Well, it's kind of weird at one point. He essentially pulls down his pants.
Yeah,
thinking,
and it's like,
hang on. Previously, he said he wouldn't just get it out, and now he's there. And he shows up a scar, sort of like an appendectomy scar, but a bit more vicious.
It is kind of like, oh, what a charming old man. But he is. Everyone calls him old as well, which I think is really weird, because I don't think he doesn't seem that old to me in this film, but everyone kind of talks to him about old man, and that's kind of layered on quite a lot.
He's got grey hair, and he walks with
Yeah. And he fights in a very strange style, I have to say. And then, they get the line here, that girl's got entirely too many brains to have an arse like that.
So they go out drinking, and then it's so late that it's morning, so they go for breakfast at a diner, and Wade gets to dance with the doctor.
Yes, and Dalton starts yawning.
Yes, and he sort of says, starts out great, got no stammer, these kids these days. Ha ha ha. And so while she goes off to the bathroom or something, the scene kind of changes.
Yeah, it's just darker.
And goes from fun and light and having a good time to essentially, I've put Wade calls him on carrying this shit. I says, you're living in the past. And he's carrying around a bad old memory.
It's a really weird expression. So, stop thinking about Memphis. That dog don't hunt.
Yeah. So, I guess a Western
kind of
thing, or a Texas thing, or something like that.
I was trying to work it out.
Anyone from that area, please let us know, because we're not from there, so we're just guessing. Yeah.
And he actually, I think, doesn't he say you should be more philosophical about it? He actually says that's the most on-the-nose thing, I think, in the whole film. But he says you should be more philosophical. The girl never told you she was married. So, okay.
If someone pulls a gun on you, you've got two choices. You either
kill or be killed.
Yeah. So it's almost like this is this real black spot that's hanging around Dalton, that's sitting on his conscience, that's interfering with what would otherwise be quite a Zen philosophy that he's trying to live by. And he hated being put in that situation, I think, but there was no choice, as we know, but he's still not willing to live with that. And I'd also just refer forward to Man of Steel in some ways, because if someone's got laser beams shooting out their eye, there are more than one thing he'd have to snap his neck. Spoilers for anyone who's not seen that awful film. There's 100 other ways he could have done it. And you know what? It wasn't just me that said it. If Len Wein says it, I'm with Len. So
I don't like that film either.
Rant
I
over.
don't like that film either. Not one bit. Anyway.
Moving on to better films.
Yes.
Let's talk about Roadhouse.
So the next night, Red's place is on fire. Then it explodes. And you think, is Red in there? But he turns up. But this is where Wesley now isn't that bothered. Before he's kind of in the background, but now he doesn't really care that everyone knows what's happening. So I think the fire's put out, they get back to the Double Deuce and he's there waiting. I
thought at this point Red was going to be inside, but thankfully he wasn't. No, he just kind of turns up in his truck. Yeah. And doesn't he do the classic thing of take off his cap and throw it on the floor?
Yes. He does. He does. That's what I don't blame him. That's like, sometimes if you're something annoying situation, I've not quite done that. I once had a seagull do its business down the side of my top, and I took off and threw down my sunglasses. But what I realised is that not only was I covered in bird shit, I also had broken sunglasses. So the bird won.
Well, my friend once, a friend of a friend, was having an ice cream,
Does that mean
and a seagull flew down and essentially stole the ice cream. So she punched the seagull.
Nice.
I think the seagull got what's coming to it, to be honest.
Punch the seagull.
Mm-hmm. Anyway.
So Wesley starts to kind of flaunt the situation because he's saying, oh, it's terrible, poor old Red. Oh, but he's the only person who doesn't pay his way to help the town. So it's not quite an admission, but it couldn't be much nearer. And then you get the sense that, you know, if you don't pay your way, then you can't have nice things. So, you know, this next scene really is Wesley turning the Double Deuce back into what it was like before. Because
it was a hole. Yeah. We knew that it was, you know, it had the women dancing on the table and all the rest of it, and that's what it was like. And I put Denise dances.
Denise puts on a show.
So essentially she does a striptease.
Yes.
And pole dances and gyrates around the stage and the musicians.
Yeah, and then around Dalton, and you just think, well, this is what she got punched in the face earlier. It's not, you know, very nice. She takes her dress off and throws it in his face.
Yep. Kind of classic.
And Wade is so worried he's put his hair in a ponytail.
He knows.
You know, that's fighting hair. As a man who's had long hair and a ponytail in his life, that is fighting hair.
I think sadly both of us had that. I have also sadly had a ponytail, and I would also tie it back.
If we both had ponytails, this would be such a different podcast. Mullets. The Babylon 5 cameos and mullets.
Mullets of action. So yes, so Wade knows. He's not stupid. I think Dalton kind of knows as well. He's trying to do a nice thing. He gets her off the stage.
He does, but then I think, you know, he's a nice guy in this film. I know he says he isn't, but, you know, be nice and all this kind of thing. But it does hit home the misogyny of the time, because even this nice guy goes, you're going to have a pet, keep it on a leash, which isn't very nice.
No.
Really?
I think he was trying to be nice to her previously.
I think so.
And she just flaunted it, and he realised that she's almost playing up the role, and he just like, you know what, fine. If you want to be that, be that. So he calls her a pet. It's not nice, but I don't think she's helping herself.
No, that's true. And then Jimmy
dances, I put.
Has a pool cue.
Which is a bit of a cheat. So if he's such a hard ass, right, and he's supposed to be rock hard, he walks out and beckons the guys to fight him whilst carrying a pool cue. And I'm thinking, right, so if you're such a tough guy, why do you need a pool cue? Come on, show off. And then he eventually, it dissolves into a bar.
It does, and the heavy smash the bar. It is back to a big bar brawl with everyone involved, so it's kind of, the film is...
Wade's involved, Dalton's in there, Jimmy's in there, and then,
Jimmy,
oddly, Wesley calls it a break.
Yeah, because Jimmy's called out Wade, and is starting to hurt him. I think Dalton steps in and takes his leg. And you kind of think, ooh. And then, Wesley fires his gun in the air, like on sports day. And he's basically, this isn't working, Dalton, which I guess is, again, it's another line in the sand. But I think it's almost like, if we wanted to, we could destroy everything. So, think on.
Well, he's just burned down a building next door that was right by them, and now he's just taken down the bar and wrecked it and taken it back to how it was. So he's almost like he wants it to be a filthy hole again.
And at this point, Red has packed to leave because, you know, he's got no livelihood. He's got nothing to, you know, really stay there for.
That insurance, one of the guys says to him. It was a bit of a tick.
We can't stop Wesley. He owns the sheriff.
Yeah, they're saying go to the police, and the guy's going, I've got a friend in the FBI. And it's like, well, no.
And then the car dealer, who I don't think we've seen at all until this point, which I think we should have seen him a lot more, because he's in it quite a lot now. You could have done with seeing him a little bit more. But he hasn't paid the protection money. So they bring Bigfoot, the monster truck, drive it over.
Not just Bigfoot.
Not from the Henderson.
A Yeti doesn't come down and just... Harry.
Yes, I was about to say. John Lithgow turns up with him. Not good. They drive the monster truck vehicle in over the cars in the showroom, and it is starting to become. I put here, it's become even more like a Western because it is kind of, it's very public what he's doing, and it's been a bit absurd. But he says, "This is my town, don't you forget it." Which,
and Red gets a great line to turn back to the insurance guy, to the car dealer who said this to him. He said,
"That's right.
Say, haven't you got insurance?"
Yeah.
It's like, your business is ruined. My business is ruined. So don't give that.
And you look a little bit like Colonel Sanders.
Grow the goatee out and then
exactly. Yeah. So Dalton is so angry that he's doing martial arts training.
Yes, really hard.
Really hard. And again, but I think it's nice because, and the more we've talked about it, the more you kind of see things. But he certainly isn't Zen at this point. And
Wade tries to reason with him.
And you see a very different side of Dalton because, Wade basically says, let's just go. Essentially, there's nothing to keep them there. This is a job. It's another job. We'll never see this place again. Let's just get out of here. And that's where he says, as you said before, you taught me as much as I taught you. But Dalton has got the red mist big time.
Yes,
so
definitely.
He flies for Wade, who catches his fist. Mm-hmm. And essentially, you get their relationship is, not in a great place at that point. And then Clay tells Dalton he should leave for his own good as well.
Everybody's telling him to leave. I think they all kind of know that. I mean, earlier on, Dalton said the bar will get worse before it gets better.
Yep.
And now things are continuing to get worse. We don't seem to have hit the bottom. We thought everything was getting better because the bar was cleaned up. It was all tidy. There was the neon lights, and it seemed to be going well. But now we've had Red's place burned down. We've had the bar being destroyed again. We've had the car dealership broken. So he's willing to do anything to get rid of Dalton. And now it seems that
and I get the feeling with Dalton is a mixture of things, because on one level he's fallen in love with the woman who lives there, and which is the kind of the surface part. But I get the feeling it's more, again, he's offended by the guy and how he treats people and how he operates. But I think it's also I don't get the feeling he leaves anywhere when the job isn't finished.
No,
because even the place he left before was in pretty good. You get the feeling once he's gone, a place will carry on as it is.
Yes, he set it up with the people there to carry on without him. They don't need him.
Yep.
Then he moves on. So it's quite, as I said, it's quite a nomadic lifestyle, but it's fulfilling in some ways because he knows he leaves behind a better setup, that they don't need him there to run it.
And so we have another fire. This time
Emmett's farm burns. And he was inside, and of course Dalton runs in, breaks down the door, runs in, grabs Emmett and brings him back outside, and Emmett gets a breakdown. He says, "Are you okay?" And he goes, "I would be if you get off my chest."
He's such a great character. And then we notice Jimmy on a motorbike laughing.
Riding
right off.
Evil laugh. Twist must.
So Dalton runs after the motorbike, jumps and knocks him off the motorbike, which is quite a feat of human endurance.
Athleticism?
Yes, athleticism. And there's a martial arts fight, and Jimmy says, "I used to fuck guys like you in prison," which is an interesting bombshell.
Right, well, okay. And I've put the fight. Win. It's just sort of, it gets really serious at this point.
Yeah.
It's quite a brutal fight in some ways, because Dalton isn't in a bar. He doesn't have to play nice. He's not playing by any of his own rules. He's starting to lose it, because we saw with Wade.
It is outside, though.
Yeah, so he doesn't have to be nice anymore. And he's really just cutting loose.
Yeah.
And Doc's sort of looking after Emmett, but she's around still.
Yes. And it's interesting, they've got similar kind of fighting styles as well. It's kind of a little bit martial arts, but with a bit of street fighting.
A lot of kickboxing, a lot of jumping kicks, spinning kicks, roundhouses. They're both really athletic guys, whether it was them always and sometimes stunt doubles too. Whoever was doing it, it's got that Jean-Claude Van Damme style of a lot of leaping through the air and spinning.
Well, it's interesting, having watched 3 Swayze films in quick succession, his fighting style is certainly the way he stands with his fists up is pretty consistent. He's got
Yeah.
a slightly leant back kind of style about him. That's pretty cool. And obviously, he was a dancer, of course, so an athletic man.
Absolutely. So I'm sure he did some of it himself, but it's pretty brutal. Yeah. The pair of them are wailing on each other. Jimmy seems to be winning, but then Dalton just sort of soaks it up and comes back and uses everything around him, uses the tree, bends his leg and takes out his knee, doesn't he?
Yeah.
He doesn't break it, but he hurts it.
And you get the feeling, as you said before, that this is Dalton now with no constraints. This is not a guy who's doing his job. This is not a guy who has to behave. This is a guy who's actually maybe isn't enjoying it, but he's approaching it in very differently to how he has before. Yeah,
and it just goes from bad to worse because
where
Jimmy's losing.
Yes.
And so, of course, he pulls a gun on Dalton. And it's this awful moment again that even though Dalton wants to win the fight, it's just that awful callback to what we had and why he left.
Yep. And we know, the advice he had from Garrett is if someone pulls a gun, kill or be killed. So he's going to have to kill again. And I think, in a way, by not leaving the town, he knew that on some level.
Yes,
there was no
I think
way.
They all did.
Yeah, exactly.
They were warning him. Wade was warning him. The doctor was telling him, and it had already gone pretty dark with the burning of buildings, and you're thinking. So in some ways it was inevitable, and yet Dalton stayed. So I'm not quite sure what that says about his character.
Yeah. So here he does what we know he's done before, which is grabs Jimmy's throat and pulls it out.
Yeah, and then dumps him in the water. Yeah. And, of course, the doc appears at this point, runs down. And interestingly, she doesn't go first to Dalton. No. She runs straight to the injured man to see that he's still okay, pulls him out of the water, and then sees that his throat...
She's pretty disgusted at that point.
And,
I put here, Dalton has killed first, which I'd forgotten. I won't spoil the next bit, but in my memory... It wasn't Dalton that drew first blood, and you wouldn't expect him to. You'd expect it to be kind of tit for tat, but he is the first person to kill somebody. Admittedly, in self-defense, kind of. But then he drags Jimmy's body into the water, and again loses cool and F's at Wesley on the other side of the river. So again, his whole Zen persona is gone at this point.
It's totally crumbled. Yeah. I think it's just kind of eroded by this town that he thought was just another job. He thought that he could cope, and then until he realised that the town has essentially been ruled by Wesley, and that it's not just about the bar, it's the whole town that's been corrupted by this one guy who seems to be willing to do anything to maintain his base of power.
Yes.
So then it's a bit weird because he goes into the bar the next morning and he seems quite upbeat.
Yeah.
He's just like, and the phone's ringing, I'll get it, and it's Wesley who delivers an ultimatum.
Yeah, I wonder, now that you've said that, I wonder if it was scripted that happened later, but they've maybe flipped it in the edit.
I don't know. But anyway, so Wesley offers Dalton an ultimatum and says...
Predating Dark Knight by some time.
Yes, he says... Someone's going to die. It's either going to be Elizabeth or Wade. I'm going to flip a coin and then decide. And he goes, wow. And, of course, he hangs up, so Dalton has no idea who's going to die.
And then Wade walks in and collapses, and you think, oh, dear. And then, oh, no, he's okay. I'm going to leave you here unattended, Wade. I'm going to leave you here on your own, injured, unattended, my old friend. And I'm going to go and check on the doc.
But it's almost, in some ways, it's a bit kind of, it's leading into things. But the other time he says, there's only 3 guys. Yeah. So I'm, at that point, having not watched it in a while, I thought, so they tried to jump Wade, and he beat them off after he got beat up a bit. So he's actually okay.
Yeah.
So now he has to go and protect the doc to make sure that they don't then, given that, Wesley's lost, he's now going to go after the doc anyway in spite.
Yes.
So he races to the hospital and attempts to rescue her, to save her. But she rejects him. She basically says, "No, I don't need.
I'm not going. I'm not.
He,
At this point, he wants them to leave. He's actually said to.
Yeah.
He said to Wade, "Sorry, yeah, we're going to get out of here." And he says, so basically, the two people who told him to leave are now in danger, and he's now completely done a 360, having killed somebody and gone. Yeah, you're right. Okay, Wade, you're right. Let's get out of here. Doc, let's get out of here. The guy's crazy, but then she flips it and says, "You're just as crazy as he is."
Exactly. Yeah.
That must have hurt.
Yeah, because before he was holding to something, a philosophy, and now it's just gone. So that code that he was almost living by is not there anymore, and she doesn't know who he is anymore. I don't think he does. No. So she's like, well, why on earth do I want to go with you? And it's almost like, for her, it's repeating itself because she was with a man who she thought was one thing, and then he turned out to be something completely different, and now it's happening all over again. So she doesn't want anything to do with him.
And so he drives off. He's driving his Merc these days. He's not even pretending that he drives his old car. Goes back and he sees that Wade's fallen asleep on the bar. So it's, come on, it's time to go.
Let's go, old man. He says, let's go.
But he sort of rolls him over. There's another knife in his chest and a note saying it was Tails.
Yeah. So he starts to completely lose it.
He's crying at this point.
Really angry. He's crying. And I've put, why did you take the murder weapon, Dalton?
Yeah, I fingerprints. But he pulls it.
DNA.
But again, I guess it is that kind of, it feels like a Western in a way, and it is that, I will use your weapon. You killed him, I will take the same knife and kill you, kind of thing. So he pulls out the knife and heads off and drives straight through a fence.
Yes, so his Mercedes is racing towards Wesley's place. All of his guys are waiting there with guns. They all start shooting the car. It keeps coming towards them. They dive out the way. The car bursts through the wall, hits something and flies up into the air, and they're shooting at it. And it explodes in a fiery ball.
But there's no one in it, because the knife, which you mentioned previously, was stabbed into the accelerator.
And then the guy takes it and puts it back in his holster of his belt. That's mine.
That's right.
That's mine.
That's where I left it.
I wondered where it had gone.
Boy.
I thought I left it in a man's chest, but no, I buried it in the car. There you are, my old mucker. There you are.
My mum gave me that. Inspiration for Guardians of the Galaxy, I think. Yeah. I like that knife. That's my favourite knife.
So then they obviously realise that it was a distraction and that he's somewhere nearby. So they start running out around the house.
And Dalton certainly has decided at this point that killing is pretty much all right. Because he's certain, it's more your typical kind of action film thing of, working your way through the henchmen to get to the big bad. So he takes out Morgan first.
Yep. And then the bartender tries to shoot him as well. So he takes the knife and throws that into him, and he falls off the ledge.
A funny bearded heavy tiger is in the taxidermy room.
It's Tinker.
It's Tinker. That makes more sense than Tiger.
Tiger, yeah. So he's called, a giant fat bloke called Tinker. And he's got a gun. He's not happy. He doesn't really want to be there. But blatantly, he's trying to do the right thing as he sees it. And he says, I hate this room, as he's wandering through it. And I've put, Tinker falls for a polar bear.
Oh, nice. A polar bear falls on him.
Falls on him, yes, essentially. Pins him to the floor. And I thought at that point, it's killed him. I'm not quite sure how. Maybe it was the weight. Yes. But it killed him. I was like, that's in a Tinker.
And then he finds Wesley quite quickly at this point, doesn't he? Because they've been taken.
Wesley tracks him.
That's right.
To the room, says, I see you found my trophy room. The only thing I haven't got in here is your ass.
Which we've seen 4 times. Thank you, Wesley.
I'm not quite sure. Hang on, you wouldn't really want someone's bum up on the wall, though, would you? As a trophy. Wouldn't you just have their face, their head?
Maybe there's the alternate ending. It ends up with his arse on the wall.
Someone should do that. How it should have ended, where the guy, kills Dalton and he's got a bum up on the wall.
And
who's that? Dalton, why don't you use his face? Well, I said I wanted his arse. That doesn't make any sense. Shut up. It was in the script.
And again, Wesley's not a very nice man. He says some terrible things. He's, you should be thanking me. Killing Wade was a mercy killing. He was an old man, and Jimmy was in much better shape.
Yeah. But then he often says, the town's big enough for the both of us. Basically, he's just saying anything to find out where Dalton is in the room, get a response so that he can shoot him. He thinks he knows where he's hiding. He jumps around, and Dalton's not there.
No.
And Dalton's behind and surprises him.
Then he surprises him by attacking him with a spear.
Well, he's caught Dalton a glancing blow with the gun and catches him on the arm. And then he starts grabbing spears from his collection and throwing them at Dalton.
That's right.
And then hitting him with a stick, like some kind of school teacher caning a student. I think
as well, he's pretty desperate, even though he has kind of thrown a few punches earlier. It was all in a controlled environment where there were 5 people there that had his back. I don't think he's a particularly tough man. He's just a man with...
fighter.
No, and I think he knows that. It's like, actually, if this becomes me against him, that's it.
I've lost. Yeah. So they have a bit of fight. Dalton, of course, wins despite being shot, despite the room, pins him, takes out his knee.
Yep.
And then pins him to the chair and raises the hand with the kind of tiger claw fingers. Like, ooh, he's going to do it. He's going to rip out his throat.
And not when someone's about to kill him either. This is a premeditated act.
Because the guy hasn't got the gun anymore. And you're thinking, this is it.
The end
it's gone down the dark side.
There's no coming back from here.
No.
But maybe there is.
Maybe there is hope. Yes. Maybe. And so he smiles and puts away the tiger.
Well, actually, Doc runs in. So at that point, so had he done it?
I think he'd kind of decided not to do it anyway.
Yeah.
And then she runs in and sees that he doesn't do it.
Thinks, he's all right. He's only killed one person, admittedly. He's killed another 4 or 5 a day, but she didn't see any of those. But then suddenly he's shot.
Well, he goes to get a weapon, doesn't he?
Yes, he does. He pulls. He's got a gun. So hang on. Now, justifiably, Dalton in our universe can pull his throat out if he can reach, but he doesn't need to. Because first,
he gets shot by someone with a shotgun.
And who is it?
It's Red. Uncle Red is there to save the day.
And then he's shot again by Colonel Saunders, the car dealer.
And then he's shot again
by Emmett. And then he's shot again by Tillman.
Yes.
This is our town. Don't you forget it.
And then here's the really dodgy bit.
Don't you forget it for the next 4 seconds before you die.
Yes. Here's the weird bit, right? Then they all give the shotguns to Red.
Yep.
There's sirens now in the distance, and he just walks off out the room with them in his arms, like 4 shotguns, like dee-dee-dee-dee. Walks off. Tinker's waking up. We find he's not dead. Hooray! And the polar bear just knocked him out till a convenient moment.
That's right.
He sees that no one's got any guns. He can see that there's a dead body on the floor. He's got his gun, and what does he do? He throws it away. They'll never see it off screen there. There it goes.
And you've got Wesley's body, which has gone through a glass table.
Yes, and the police run in, and the head of the sheriff goes, "What happened? What happened here? Did you see what happened? I didn't see what happened. Did you see what happened? I see what happened."
No one knows what happened, so how could they possibly solve this crime?
Here's my favourite bit, right? Probably the favourite comedy moment of the film.
Oh, okay.
Somebody says, I don't know who it is, says to Tinker, "Tinker, did you see what happened?" Right? And he pauses. He looks around the room. He looks at the dead body. He looks at the other guys. Right? And then it cuts to some stuffed animals. Yeah. But you notice what they were?
No. Oh, the wise monkeys.
There's 3 monkeys, 3 stuffed monkeys. It's a scenery will hear will speak to people. Yeah. I started laughing at that point. And then he goes, "A polar bear fell on me."
I love the fact that these kind of 80s films could do lots of people dying, followed by something like that. You don't get those big shifts anymore of tone at all. And at this point, I think that Doc and Dalton maybe either holding hands or have their arms around each other, some kind of big, hang on, they seem to be back together.
Yeah.
And then that's it, really. And then the over the credits, you wonder, did Dalton and Doc get together? Did he move on? Did he stay there? Not only did they stay there, they went skinny dipping. Yes,
so she's swimming naked in the lake, I assume. And then I didn't go back and watch this again, but a naked Patrick Swayze runs along the shore and dives in.
Yes.
So we see his bottom and all of him, probably.
I didn't notice.
There wasn't a lot to see. And he dives into whilst the music is playing, and they're skinny dipping and kissing in the lake.
Yeah.
So you get left to your own conclusion.
They all lived happily ever after, apart from his dead mentor. Mentors always die.
And the villain and the henchman. But Tink is okay, so that's all right.
Yes. I'm assuming Jeff Healey was okay.
Well, he was playing at the end.
That's true.
With his mullet.
And I did notice in the end, I was looking through the songs, and Patrick Swayze, this was his Dennis Mortimer phase. So he did write and perform a song in the film, but I have absolutely no idea where it was. Because Carrie's character, she sang in the bar.
She did.
Obviously, Jeff Healey sings covers throughout the whole film, but at some point, Patrick Swayze sang, but not in character. Or the song.
So maybe just backing vocals.
Yeah, or maybe it was on in his car or something. But, yeah.
Yeah. So, and that's kind of it.
Yeah. Again, which seems to be noticed with a lot of these films, particularly films that are kind of under 2 hours, they end really quickly. But I read a thing the other day would describe this as a cult movie. Now, Joel Silver produced this film. Yeah. And if you could think of any producer that is not a cult filmmaker, it would be Joel Silver.
I would think so.
Mr. Action Movie himself, really. It's really strange. Really strange. And do you know who the director is? Or was?
Not without looking it up.
Rowdy Herrington, great name. Who I'm assuming at some point may have been a stuntman. With that name. I might be wrong. But he hasn't done that many films, but he did...
Or a wrestler.
The next two films... Yeah, like Roddy Piper. The next two films he did after this were Gladiator in 1992, not the Ridley Scott film, but a film that actually I really like, which is Cuba Gooding Jr. and James Marshall. It's a boxing film.
Not seen that
it's
one,
really good, really good. I had it on VHS back in the day. In fact, I had these 3 films in a row, because I had Roadhouse on VHS, I had Gladiator, and I had 1993's not particularly good Striking Distance. Which is
JCVD, is it?
No, Striking Distance is Bruce Willis and Sex and the City lady. Jessica Horseface. Yeah, and she's not playing a horse.
Is that the one on the boat?
Yeah.
Oh, that film's actually not bad.
It's okay.
It's pretty good.
But he had that little run in a row, so I had all 3 of those. I must have liked it enough at the time to have got it on VHS.
I like that film.
And I looked into who the writers were, because it's not a film that I'd ever really, thought about from that perspective. But David Lee Henry, who also wrote Out for Justice, the Seagal film, with William Forsythe,
Well, sadly, he did write Roadhouse 2.
But no, I thought that, and I looked at his characters.
So it's not him.
And Hilary Henkin wrote it with him, who wrote Romeo is Bleeding, Gary Oldman film.
Right, okay.
So, but, yeah, Roadhouse 2, I have seen. As your friend,
yes.
Please don't ever watch that film. And anyone
how bad is it? Just how bad is
really, it? Really, really, really bad. It's it's. I think Tillman is in it. I think Tillman is in it.
Reading the news, the synopsis. Whilst he's deep undercover in New York, DE agent Shane Tanner, the son of legendary cooler Dalton, learns that his uncle Nate Tanner got beat up by a group of men. So Tanner's in it again somehow.
Yeah.
How bizarre.
He's played by Jonathan. Is it Shish? Shish.
Shaq.
But Richard,
anyway,
it's Will Patton, isn't it?
Yeah.
As Nate Tanner. Jake Busey is the main villain, Wild Bill.
Oh dear.
But Richard Norton is in it, who's a kind of Australian, old school, in lots of Cynthia Rothrock films, kind of martial arts guy. So it's not good. I wish I'd never seen it. I always said, just imagining, never. Oh, here we are. The part of Nate Tanner was originally supposed to be James Dalton, Patrick Swayze's character from the first Roadhouse, but Swayze backed out due to creative differences and the character was changed.
Okay. Well, I'm not going to rush out to watch Roadhouse.
And we talked before, didn't we, about the film that Swayze turned down to do Roadhouse, or dropped out of to do Roadhouse.
think we mentioned it.
Yeah.
Remind
Tango and Cash.
That's
He
right.
would have been the Kurt Russell character.
Little part. Which I can see, but I think Kurt Russell did a brilliant part in that job.
Get to the chopper! Enough with the yakety yak. What is your score?
Okay, so are we ready to give Roadhouse a score?
I think so. Yeah. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first because you normally do.
Okay.
So
Yeah. Okay.
it's been a while since I've watched this. I have watched it before many times, as I said, and I don't think I picked up as much the first few times I watched it. The kind of the philosophy thing, the fact that he's struggling with this life. He's struggling with trying to live by a certain philosophy, and yet he's put himself in a job where he's fighting all the time, but he's good at it. This is the thing, you see. He says it's the only thing. He says he never loses. He says he's good at it. And yet he says no one ever wins a fight. So he's got this kind of strange internal struggle. So there is the basic story, which is, a man comes to town, settles the bar, beats the bad guy and goes off. But there's more to it. So there are some bad bits, which you mentioned, the way it kind of depicts women in the film and stuff. But of its time, I think it's one of the better films. I think it is a lot better than I was expecting. So I'm going to give it 4 bags out of 5.
Okay. And I get the feeling yours has gone maybe an upward to a 4. Mine is kind of the reverse, because there was a time when this was one of my favourite films.
Okay.
Full stop. I've seen it a lot of times. I think now the predictability of the film, having said that, if you've seen the film a lot of times, it's always going to seem predictable to a certain extent, but it does kind of, the more I read kind of screenwriting books, this does hit every beat where it's supposed to.
Right.
But that's not necessarily always a criticism. But I think, it's not quite as good as I remember it. Having said that, the conversation we've had has actually reminded me of some of the character stuff, which a lot of reviews I've read have been really dismissive and mocking, and I think I've missed those things. So I would say I'm also going to give it 4 bags.
Okay.
But I've probably gone down 1 and you've probably gone up 1, and we've met in the 4 bags area.
I think so. Okay. Yeah, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it more than I remembered, and there was more to it. So yes, it's definitely a 4 bags for me. That's it for this episode. That was Roadhouse. Hope you enjoyed it. In the meantime, if you want to get in touch with us, you can come on to Facebook. You can follow us on Twitter. Just look for Bags of Action on both. And let us know what you thought.
I thought you'd be bigger. That's what she should have said when he jumped in the water.
Oh, brilliant.
When they first got into bed, she goes, I thought you'd be bigger.
You have been listening to Bags of Action. No bullshit. You'd better stick around for the next episode, because if you're lying, I'll be back.